Okay. Hello, everyone. It's terrific to have you all here. Thank you so much. François-Philippe and I joining you here from Washington. And look, we had today the first trilateral semiconductor forum between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. You might remember that earlier this year, the North American Leader Summit had the three countries working together more collaboratively, more competitively to advance North American competitiveness, and in particular around semiconductors. So it was really terrific today with Minister Champagne, with Secretary Bonrostro from Mexico, and Secretary Raimondo from the United States, where we convened a really important meeting with industry from all three countries, academia from all three countries, and us as government partners. And why is this so important? I think we were told earlier that those who are able to build out the semiconductor industry are going to be those that are going to be able to have a greater guarantee for their economic future. And if you take a look at how Canada, the United States, and Mexico trade, we are the most successful trading bloc in the world. We are larger than the European Union. Canada, US, and Mexico trade over $2 trillion. And if you look at how integrated our economies are and our sectors, particularly in automobile, you don't build automobiles of the future without semiconductors. You think about mining and critical minerals and how important semiconductors will be to that industry, or your cell phones, or consumer products, and I think that list goes on. Aerospace, defense, you name it. So today was a really important meeting where we were able to bring the industry together. We are looking forward to continue doing this important work here in US and with Canada and with Mexico. And in doing so, we'll create great jobs for our workers in all three of our countries, and to keep developing this ecosystem coming out of the North American Leader Summit, and then the President's visit to the the President Biden's visit to Canada. We created the north-south or northeastern corridor for semiconductors. So a lot of work already beginning and more work to come. With that, I'm going to pause and hand it over to you, François-Philippe, for you to add to this.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for coming. We even see sunshine, that's good, we bring you to the best view in town, I guess. Listen, very busy day. Flew in from Korea, as you could see yesterday. Attended the first ever, I would say, trilateral semiconductor summit. Minister Ng said it. Semiconductor is the DNA of progress. So that is very important for Canada to be at the table. You will remember when President Biden came to Canada, he talked about this northeastern corridor between Albany and Bromont and Quebec, where, at the time, when we imagined that, it was really to replicate what we've done in the auto sector, to have this kind of northeast integrated supply chain to make sure that we could serve the North American market. So today was all about resilience, how we can work together. We had people from academia, from businesses. I took the opportunity, you know me, I wake up early. I had the CEO of North America for TSMC. We met the CEO of North America for Infineon, really making the case for Canada as we're building this new industry. You'll recall it's a bit for me like what we did in the battery ecosystem, and now we're ranking second in the world. So we really want to make the case for Canada. And I can tell you it's no longer why Canada, it's how and when, and how can we integrate ourselves in these key supply chain. We're just off of a very good meeting with Secretary Raimondo. We talked about a number of things. You can never come too often in Washington. That would be my message to you all. So good to talk to the Secretary. We talked obviously about the semiconductor. I even announced that Canada will be hosting the next meeting, the follow-up meeting of the Trilateral Semiconductor Summit. We'll do that probably in Bromont in Quebec. We also talked about AI, which is top of mind to everyone, to say how can we work together between the United States and the European Union to address the very legitimate concern of citizens with respect to how AI is going to be used and how we can have responsible innovation. And I know some of you may have on your mind LG Stellantis. So let me say a few words about that. First of all, I think we've seen in the comments of Premier Ford this morning, you have all seen that we're making progress. I told you that I remain very confident that we will come to an agreement with the company. I also took the opportunity earlier this week to have dinner with the president of LG Energy Solution in Korea. Actually, we had a dinner for more than 2 hours, and he even wrote back to me this morning. I think we have a common understanding about the way forward. And finally, I think, what Canadians have seen in the last few days was really to make sure that we get the best possible deals for Canadian workers, for Canadian auto industry, and for Canadians in general. So let me say, je vais me répéter en français pour être sûr que je puisse vous donner un peu un compte-rendu. Évidemment, aujourd'hui, on était là, la ministre Ng et moi, pour le premier sommet trilatéral avec le Mexique, les États-Unis et le Canada sur les semi-conducteurs. On sait que les semi-conducteurs sont un peu l'ADN du progrès, donc très important pour le Canada d'être à la table des négociations avec, évidemment, les maisons d'enseignement, mais aussi les grands joueurs de l'industrie des semi-conducteurs. Vous savez, quand le président Biden est venu au Canada, il a parlé de ce fameux corridor-là entre Bromont et Albany qu'on avait imaginé, un corridor un peu similaire à celui qu'on a dans l'automobile entre Windsor et Détroit. Donc, ce grand corridor-là où on pourrait travailler ensemble pour amener plus de résilience. Moi, je l'ai toujours dit à nos amis américains, si vous voulez être résilient dans le domaine des semi-conducteurs, le Canada doit faire partie de l'équation. J'ai même lancé l'invitation que le prochain sommet sera au Canada, probablement à Bromont, justement, ou près de l'Université de Sherbrooke, pour justement démontrer ce qu'on fait au Canada. Vous savez, au Canada, on est très bon au niveau du design des semi-conducteurs. Et là, on va voir aussi ce qu'on peut faire, parce que Bromont, vous le savez, c'est l'usine la plus importante en Amérique du Nord pour ce qu'on appelle le packaging, donc la dernière partie de la fabrication des semi-conducteurs. Et on vient d'avoir une rencontre avec la secrétaire Raimondo, où on a parlé évidemment de cette prochaine réunion-là, mais on a parlé d'intelligence artificielle qui est au cœur des préoccupations des gens de chez nous. Il y a un sommet États-Unis-Europe auquel on devra d'une façon se coordonner avec le Canada. L'idée, c'est de voir ce qu'on peut faire ensemble pour rassurer les gens, mais aussi s'assurer qu'on peut avoir de l'innovation responsable en matière d'intelligence artificielle. Et je pense que vous avez peut-être LG Stellantis en tête aussi. D'abord, ce qu'on a vu ce matin, c'est des propos rassurants, je pense, du premier ministre Ford, qui indique qu'on fait du progrès. La deuxième chose que je vous dirais, c'est que je demeure tout à fait confiant, comme je l'ai toujours été, qu'on allait arriver à une solution acceptable pour toutes les parties. Lorsque j'étais en Corée avant-hier, j'ai pris l'opportunité de souper avec le président de LG Energy Solution. On a discuté pendant près de 2 heures. Et même ce matin, il m'a écrit sur la voie à suivre. Et finalement, je vous dirais que tout ça, je sais que les Canadiens ont vu ça, ça a pu inquiéter des gens, mais l'idée derrière ça, c'était de négocier le meilleur accord possible dans l'intérêt des travailleurs, dans l'intérêt de l'industrie, mais évidemment dans l'intérêt de tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes. So with that, we'll be happy to take questions.
The total incentives for Stellantis is going to come to about $8 billion. Is that about right?
Well, listen, the baseline is that we have always said, and you have to go back to the fall economic statement where we said we would level the playing field with the United States when it comes to the type of IRA incentives, but that we would do it in a Canadian way, very targeted, very limited, very strategic. And that's what you've been seeing playing out. And I want to dismiss something that I've seen in the press. I was in Korea, but I've read articles that suggested that somehow the negotiation with Stellantis have been influenced with the one at Volkswagen. Let me say that these discussions have been in parallel all the time, probably even started before with Stellantis. Is that in March of last year, we already had the deal with Stellantis with respect to their factory in Canada. But obviously, when the IRA came, they asked that we sit down to make sure that in the spirit of maintaining that very important, I would say, activity in Canada, that we look at what we could do. So we've been negotiating in parallel with these two companies, and what you've seen in the last few days, I would say, just normal negotiations. I wish that Canadians would not be too concerned over that. We're going to get to an agreement, and like I said, we see progress in the comments made by Premier Ford this morning in Canada.
What's the break out of the $8 billion? What's the breakdown going to be between federal contributions?
Listen, there's discussion going on between the federal government and provincial government. We've always worked hand in hand, as you know, because, that's how we do big things in this country. This is Team Canada attracting some of the most important generational investments. And therefore, I wanted to say to my colleagues in Ontario, we've always worked well with Premier Ford, with with Vic Fedeli, Minister Fedeli, with the Minister of Finance, and we want to keep that good spirit because that's how we win. We win when we work together, as we will always do. And like I said, I welcome the comments of the Premier this morning on that. Oui, la question était de savoir les discussions qu'on a eues avec LG Stellantis. Alors, ce que je disais, c'est que les discussions de LG Stellantis ont été en parallèle de celles qu'on a eues avec Volkswagen. Vous savez, depuis le début, on a exprimé aux sociétés, on l'avait écrit en automne dernier, dans ce qu'on a fait, la mise à jour économique d'automne, que ce qu'on essaierait de faire, c'est de s'assurer qu'on soit compétitif par rapport aux États-Unis avec la fameuse IRA aux États-Unis, mais qu'on le ferait de façon canadienne, qu'on serait sélectif, qu'on serait, j'allais dire, vraiment, qu'on focaliserait sur les compagnies qui peuvent faire bénéficier l'écosystème canadien. Alors, il y a eu certaines discussions dans la presse cette semaine que j'ai vues qui suggéraient que les discussions avec Stellantis sont un résultat de Volkswagen, mais non. On a discuté avec ces deux compagnies-là depuis le début. Et ce qu'on leur a dit toutes les deux, c'est que c'est deux acteurs importants de l'écosystème. On l'a toujours dit, il y aura seulement quelques compagnies avec qui on pourra négocier pour bonifier l'écosystème. C'est des opportunités générationnelles. Et je veux remercier les collègues de l'Ontario aussi. Je pense qu'il y avait des commentaires du premier ministre Ford ce matin qui étaient encourageants. Vous savez, on a toujours travaillé ensemble. Quand on travaille Équipe Canada ensemble, on gagne. Alors l'idée, on a toujours fait ça ensemble, on va continuer de le faire. Et c'est ce qui va nous permettre de prendre, je pense, des opportunités générationnelles qui vont bénéficier les travailleurs et l'industrie pour les générations à venir.
I would just ask that questions get asked through the microphone.
I think your
Hi.
give me just a second so the gentleman can
Okay.
repeat the question and I'll take.
Sorry.
I apologize. I'm just wondering, why was Ontario required to be involved with Stellantis when it wasn't involved in Volkswagen?
Well, I would say because we always do these things together. You know, you have to go back to the auto pack, and you will have seen that at every step of the way, the federal government and the provincial government have been working hand in hand. And this is how we won. This is how we won these big investments over decades. And now we are looking at this, I would say, this generational moment where we need to do an extra effort to make sure that we seize these generational opportunities. And as we have always done, we're happy and certainly welcome for the province of Ontario to do its fair share because a lot of the benefits will be for workers in Ontario, will be for the auto industry in Ontario, and you know, for the supply chain across Canada. So, like I said, we're very happy. We have always done things together, and I certainly look forward to do more together because you know, when it comes to the battery ecosystem. You will recall we started that journey just a few months ago, and now Bloomberg ranks Canada second in the world for what we have achieved. So this is a real Canadian success, building a new industry, doing it together, jobs, good jobs for tens of thousands of workers for generations to come. So this is Canada winning, and when we win is because we work together. Sir.
Hi. Yes, I have a question for Minister Ng, but it does concern autos, a different autos issue, though. The trade dispute with the case that Canada and Mexico brought against the United States, it's been several months since the panel issued a ruling in Canada and Mexico's favor. The U.S. still hasn't complied. Could you kind of give us an update on where things stand at this point? And are you optimistic of getting an acceptable solution without Canada and Mexico having to threaten retaliation?
Thank you for that question. Well, let me just take a step back for a moment, which is a bit of where I started earlier when I started my comments, which is that the trading relationship between Canada, U.S., and Mexico is a very successful one. It is one that has created millions of jobs in all of our countries. And I think one of the things that has been also very successful is the way in which Canada renegotiated this important agreement that had those mechanisms for dispute settlement. And that is all very, very good. And of course, in a relationship as large as the one between Canada, the United States, and Mexico, of course there are going to be issues. And of course, relying on the panels to do the work has been very, very useful. And it's a useful tool for all of us. we are working with the United States together with Mexico on this. We know how important it is for the auto sector, and that work continues. We've stayed closely in touch with industry, but today when we think about the automobile industry of the future, whether it's batteries and the ecosystem that's being built in Canada, or whether it is those chips and the semiconductors and the enormous investments that the United States and Canada and here in North America have invested to make sure that this is it's going to be a dynamic market and will continue to be for automobiles, is really sort of what we continue to work on. But to answer your question, we're continuing to work on it, and we've kept the lines open between us and industry.
Do you have any prediction on when we'll see an agreement or some sort of deal or resolution of the issue?
We're still working on it, and as I said, there are a range of issues. I mean, today, Minister Champagne and I had an opportunity to speak with Secretary Raimondo about many of the opportunities where we will work together, particularly in this semiconductor sort of, trilateral, integrated, more North American competitiveness, particularly in this space, and we talked through a range of issues. So I was here just a couple of weeks ago, meeting with the USTR, and of course had an opportunity to speak to Ambassador Tai about that. I'll see Ambassador Tai again in a few short days next week when I attend APEC with her. So. There are opportunities, and there continues to be, and we remain in open conversation.
Minister, with Ontario, with Premier Ford's announcement today, I know you touched on this, but can you say that Ontario now has given its fair share? Is what he announced or what you know about what Ontario is going to give toward Stellantis plant, is it sufficient? Is it Ontario's fair share?
Well, listen, I just saw the news report. I was not at the press conference, as obviously I'm in Washington. But what I see is that we're making progress, that the comments, at least, that were reported in the press of Premier Ford, for me, indicates progress. And that's what we need to do. We need to come to a negotiated agreement quickly with all parties involved. I know there's discussions ongoing, and I know these discussions are progressing, and I will let the process go. But one thing is sure is that the fact that I could be in Korea this week, it's just like, it so happened because the Prime Minister was there on an official visit. But the fact that I could spend 2 hours with the president of LG Energy Solutions, which manage all the battery plants in the world of LG Solution, and we had dinner for 2 hours, and he stayed with me for 2 hours, that's already a pretty good sign to me.
Can you respond in French, too?
Je vous dis, écoutez, ce que j'ai vu aujourd'hui, c'est évidemment ce qui a été rapporté dans la presse, c'est que le Premier ministre Ford parlait de sa contribution sur Stellantis. Évidemment, moi, je trouve que c'est important parce que c'est un progrès. Il faut arriver à conclure une entente avec toutes les parties de façon rapide. Comme c'était le cas, vous avez vu plus tôt dans la semaine, j'étais en Corée dans la visite officielle du Premier ministre. Mais la bonne chose, j'ai pu m'entretenir pendant plus de 2 heures avec le président d'LG Energy Solutions, qui est le président en charge de toutes les usines de batteries dans le monde et qui est resté avec moi 2 heures pour souper, qui m'a écrit aujourd'hui. Je pense que ça veut dire que les choses vont assez bien. Évidemment, on a encore du travail à faire. Il faut s'assurer de conclure l'entente rapidement, dans l'intérêt de tout le monde. Mais je pense que ce que j'ai vu ce matin, des commentaires du Premier ministre Ford, ça indique qu'il y a du progrès qui est en train de se faire. Merci.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you could speak about any concerns about Mexico's energy policies that are the subject of a USMCA dispute, and if you're concerned that those policies might complicate the kinds of efforts you've been talking about today to boost investment in semiconductors and other kinds of joint coordination on manufacturing. Did that come up in your conversations the past couple of days, and can you give any update on the ongoing dispute?
Well, thank you for that important question. This is an issue with respect to Mexico's energy reforms that I have on multiple occasions raised with my Mexican counterparts, with Secretary Buenrostro. What was encouraging was the last meeting at the Leader Summit, where our Prime Minister raised this issue directly. We saw some progress on behalf of Canadian companies, being able to have a dialogue with the Mexican government. It was really important for us that the Mexican government and leadership meet with Canadian companies and investors who are investing in Mexico, particularly in the energy space. It's an issue that we will, of course, keep a careful eye to. Right now, there are discussions underway, and there seems to be a way and an interest on behalf of the Mexican government working with Canadian investors and businesses. But you know, for me, I will for sure keep a close, watchful eye on this, and the Canadian investors and companies are keeping me up to date, and so far they are in discussions.
If I may add to that, I would just say the key message today really in Washington was, you know, if you think what's underlying the IRA and the CHIPS Act is all about resiliency. And my key message to Washington has always been, if you want to be more resilient, Canada has to be part of the equation. We saw that with respect, for example, to the EV batteries because, you know, we have the talent, we have the critical minerals, we have the renewable energy, we have access to market. But when it comes to semiconductors, it's the same thing. I think there's an understanding now in Washington, I feel, with the big players that Canada not only is good with chip design, with compound semiconductor that are going to power the car of the future, but actually the largest packaging and testing facility in North America happens to be in Canada. So the fact that we need to work together is echoed everywhere in the meeting we had today. And that's why I'm so confident, you know, what we've achieved today is really to make sure, you know, at some point it has to be, we have to move beyond why Canada and move to how and when. And I think that's what we have achieved today with all the players that were at the table.
Okay.
Hein? Oui, j'essaie de me rappeler c'était quoi la question. J'étais déjà passé. Can you repeat just remind me, the question was
Mexican energy.
Oh, Mexican.
Yeah,
So, oui. Alors, moi, je pense que ce qu'on a réussi à faire aujourd'hui, le message que j'avais pour Washington, ce qu'il faut comprendre, c'est que ce qui sous-tend, dans le fond, ce qu'on a appelé l'Inflation Reduction Act et ce qu'on a appelé le CHIPS Act, c'est la résilience. Et moi, le message qu'on envoie à Washington, c'est si vous voulez être plus résilient, le Canada doit faire partie de l'équation. Je pense qu'il y a une compréhension aujourd'hui, que ce soit dans le domaine des semi-conducteurs pour bâtir les batteries du futur, plutôt dans le domaine des minéraux critiques pour bâtir les batteries du futur. Mais du même côté, quand on parle des semi-conducteurs, je pense qu'il y a une compréhension, une réalisation ici à Washington que, par exemple, la plus grande usine pour tester et ce qu'on dit mettre en paquet ou assembler la dernière étape pour les semi-conducteurs, ça se trouve au Canada, ça se trouve à Bromont, au Québec. Alors, il y a comme une compréhension que si on veut être plus résilient aux États-Unis, le Canada doit faire partie de l'équation. On n'est plus au point de dire pourquoi le Canada, on est plutôt au dire comment et quand. Et ça, je pense que c'est le point majeur qu'on a réussi à passer ici à Washington aujourd'hui.
And our last question of the day.
Okay.
And you know, you even have like music in the background
Oh yeah, lovely. So,
cheering you up.
back to Stellantis. Do you believe that you're competing against the United States for Stellantis? And if so, what can Canada do to prevent that from happening, from being lured to the States?
Well, we already have Stellantis. Stellantis is in Canada. They've been in Canada for decades. What we're talking about now is this generational shift and the retooling of facilities. We're talking about building batteries. And let me tell you, you know, one thing that people have to understand, we're Canada. We never win on the money. These entities are going to be there for decades to come. I mean, I recall when I was with the CEO of Volkswagen, he said, Minister, we're not here for 5 years. We're not here for 20 years. We're not here for 30. We're here for 100 years. So obviously the subsidies are there and you're looking at that, but that's not the differentiator. Do you know why we win? It's because of the Canadian workers. It's our older workers that make us win. It's the fact that they are the best in the world, the fact that we have renewable energy, the fact that we have the critical minerals, and that we have proximity to market and the assembly line. So obviously Canada is the place to be for Stellantis and LG. LG is the first time that they'll have a facility. And I spoke to the president of LG Energy Solution, and you know what? He managed all the battery manufacturing sites in the world, not just in North America. He sits with me, we're talking, and he said, yeah, there's a lot of things going on for Canada. Now, We need to resolve this negotiation. We're Canadians. We know how to negotiate. We know how to get a good deal for Canadians, for our workers, for our industry. That's what's playing out today. And, you know, we're going to come to a conclusion. And, you know, years from now, we'll look back and we say, oh, yes, that was all part of negotiation. But bottom line is that we're going to be at the forefront of the, I would say, the car of the future. And we're going to be leading in the energy transition. And I keep saying them, people are moving from an electric car to a green car. So if you want to bet for 100 years, go in the jurisdiction that produce green steel, green aluminum, green batteries, green semiconductor. That's Canada of today.
One more question I want to
Yes.
ask about semiconductors. How many workers do you think that you're going to need to keep this thing going, especially since you're going to need a lot of trained and skilled workers? And how are leaders looking to solve that problem?
Well, I'll say a few words, and I'm sure Minister Ng would add to that. Talent is everything. You know, you can talk about subsidies, you can talk about buildings, you can talk about trade agreements, but at the end of the day, what really matters, and that's why today was so significant, is we had the education sector with us. Because at the end of the day, I keep saying, those who are most key in everything we do now to attract investment is colleges, it's university, it's training center, it's unions training center, because they're the ones who allow us to go to market and say, we have the people, we have the asset you need. I mean, we saw like Ontario, I think I saw a statistic, welcome more immigrants than I think was the state of Texas or the state of Florida. So we are a magnet for talent. As long as we're going to be a magnet of talent, we're going to win in the economy of the 21st century.
So just to pick up on that, I won't say much more, but Canada is also a country with a lot of immigrants and we continue to welcome newcomers to Canada. But what we're also welcoming are students and people who are studying in our post-secondary institutions, in our colleges and in our universities. And what we saw today was around the table, institutions, colleges, and universities, higher education institutions from all three countries with some really, really good and creative ideas of how we work together. And you know what, in Canada, you know what I see around my neighborhood all the time? Entrepreneurialism. Entrepreneurialism by those very incredible young people, not just young people, who want to be a part of this semiconductor space. So it was, I would say it's very, very exciting. I mean, we're all very bullish on Canada, but I would also say that the Americans and the Mexicans are pretty bullish on Canada too.
Which question? Do you wanted me to repeat that in French? Which one was that? I just want to be fair to...
Competing.
Ah, OK. America. Écoutez, la question, c'était de savoir est-ce qu'on est en compétition avec les Américains pour Stellantis. Ma réponse était simple. Stellantis est au Canada depuis des décennies et Stellantis va être au Canada encore parce qu'évidemment, dans les discussions qu'on a, je sais qu'il y a eu beaucoup d'attention qui a été placée sur, par exemple, les subventions qui pourraient être accordées. Mais quand on était avec le grand PDG, Oliver Bloom de Volkswagen, c'est lui qui l'a exprimé le mieux. Il dit, écoutez, nous, on n'est pas ici pour 5 ans, on n'est pas ici pour 10 ans, on n'est pas ici pour 20 ans, on est ici pour 100 ans. Évidemment, les subventions qui sont accordées sont intéressantes, mais on voit bien au-delà de ça. Le fait qu'on gagne aujourd'hui, qu'on a des investissements, c'est à cause des travailleurs de l'industrie du secteur automobile. C'est grâce à eux qu'on est capable d'attirer ces talents-là. C'est grâce au fait qu'on a des minéraux critiques. C'est grâce au fait qu'on a de l'énergie renouvelable. C'est grâce au fait qu'on a un accès au marché parce qu'aujourd'hui, je pense que les grands constructeurs, on est en train de passer du véhicule électrique au véhicule vert. Et la juridiction dans le monde qui a pris une avance avec de l'aluminium vert, de l'acier vert, on veut faire des batteries vertes, on parle même de faire des semi-conducteurs verts, c'est le Canada. Alors, on a tout ce qu'il faut pour gagner dans l'économie du 21e siècle. Merci tout le monde.
Thank you, and that
Thank you, everyone.
concludes today's press conference.